Chazanim. Okay, we're about to begin with Havdalah. So if I ask you all to please rise, and if someone knows how to turn some of the lights off, we can get a little atmosphere. Yeah, that's good.
La la Tov, Shavua 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 Tov. A good week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Welcome, everyone. It's so wonderful to have you all here. I hope you had a restful and rejuvenating Shabbat. It's great to have our communities gathered together, whether you're here in person or joining us virtually, that we're all together as we move into Selichot, the poems and prayers that we say the Saturday night, or in our case, the 2 Saturday nights prior to Rosh Hashanah. It is right around the corner, if you can believe it. But Selichot is a night of reflection and song to usher in the Yamim Noraim, the days of awe. And so we're going to spend the first part of this evening in reflection with a program that I'm so excited about, and Rabbi Kamras will introduce in just a moment. And then afterwards, we'll enjoy some desserts, some more tea and coffee, followed by our soulful musical Selichot service. It's going to be a really special evening together. So, Rabbi Kamras, would you introduce our speakers?
Thank you so much, and again, it is wonderful to be together. Temple Aliyah and Shomrei Torah Synagogue, those of you here and those of you watching us online. So there are many ways in which we can find inspiration during the month of Elul in preparation for and leading up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And one of the primary ways that we Jews find inspiration for the work that we need to do, the work of tshuva, of repentance, of change, of turning, is often found in our prayer book, right? We are filled as a community with words and prayers and the language of God talk in order to help us find ways in which we can connect with the wisdom of our ancestors to hopefully do the work that we need to do in order to make a difference in our lives. But that's not the only way in which, or the only place that we can find inspiration through the words of the Siddur or the words of our Torah, of our Bible. Oftentimes, it is inspiration through the language of the heart, through the stories that fellow members of the community, who we all walk this earth together, find in their own personal stories our opportunity to see reflected our stories, and ones that can perhaps us find clues to help us in this journey towards repentance and tshuva. And so this evening, we have a really wonderful opportunity to hear from 4 individuals who have, I believe, very compelling stories to share with us. Compelling stories of tshuva, of repentance, of return, and ultimately of redemption. 2 are members of Homeboys Industries, which is one of the largest, well, I'm not going to define it. You guys, you'll tell us what Homeboys Industries, I don't need to do that. And 2 from Beit Tshuva, which they'll also explain what Beit Tshuva is for those of you who don't know. I just have the opportunity to welcome these 4 individuals here this evening. So if you are comfortable coming forward, Gary and Robert and Russell and Lisa, to come on up here. And I'm going to invite you either, if you're more comfortable to sit, there's water for you as well to sit, and I'll sit with you. If you're more comfortable standing and speaking when you want to tell your story, we can do that as well. But Russell and Lisa and Robert and Gary are each going to have about 10 to 15 minutes to share their stories. And then we are going to open it up to all of you to ask questions. And then afterwards, I have a little bit of a writing assignment for all of you, 3 questions. And maybe what I'll do is I will invite you to think about the questions now. I'm not going to pass out the sheet of paper, but I'm going to tell you what the questions are so you can think about it while you're listening to the stories. What lessons from our speakers can you hold on to as guides for your own teshuvah work, for your own work of repentance? What is one area of your life or one relationship or one aspect of your personality that you would like to focus on with regard to tshuva? And what is that first step that you might take in that specific work? So again, since Selichot is an opportunity for us to focus on the work that we have to do, and in just another week, those are the questions I want you to think about. So, going first. Robert, you're good for going first? Okay. You want to stand? You want to sit? Okay, excellent. So, yeah, you don't need an introduction. This is Robert, who is a member of Homeboy's Industry, who is a navigator, correct?
Correct.
A navigator, you'll tell us exactly what that is and what it's all about.
Okay, good evening. So a navigator is pretty much someone that walks alongside of you. When you're transitioning out of, I guess a good way to put it is redemption, right? Like when you're trying to change your life around. So, like the program for me, when I first came home 3 years ago from prison, I was lost, broken, tired, a lot of trauma had happened to me during that time, right? And so I just knew that I wanted to change, right? So I went through those doors at Homeboy Industries, and not really knowing what was ahead, you know what I mean? I had lost my mom, I lost my dad. I have brothers, you know what I mean? But, I got my own kids as well, so, my brothers and them, they got used to me kind of like being that person that just didn't care and was going in and out of jail all my life. So, they had a short leash to what they would, set and help me with, Pretty much I had to prove to them, you know what I mean? And it took some time, right? It took some time. It took 2 years to actually finally hear them say, I'm proud of you, you know what I mean? So I walked through those doors at Homeboy Industries, and I wanted change, I didn't know how, and it's funny that, I used to hear this definition, or it's a affirmation, right, about, insanity is repeating the same thing twice and expecting a different outcome, right? So every time I would go to jail, I'd be like, man, what am I doing wrong? And this started at a young age, you know what I mean? I was trying to figure it out at a young age, what could make me do good. I got 3 boys, and each time I had a son, I would be like, all right, man, this is going to change me, And, man, it's sad to say it didn't, it didn't. Neither 3. And then, my mom, first my dad went, he passed away, and then I lost my mom. Now, I think my mom, when I lost my mom, I never knew what hospice was. I never knew, when you have your parents, you think they're going to be around forever. That's selfish of us as kids to think that, So, I remember my mom got diagnosed with lung cancer, and, it was just, I didn't even know what surreal meant, this was happening like that in my 20s, So I remember her requesting that she wanted to just, end it on hospice, and she came home to us, and then I had to see her pass away in front of me. So I think that did something big for me, So, like I said, I had other prior prison terms that I had did, before, and then this third one, I was real angry, real angry. I was blaming everybody but myself, And I finally took responsibility for everything that I did, and my transformation came around that time, the third term, my third prison term. And I said, you know what, man, for all these years, I've been putting this, gang in front of, up on a pedestal, right? Before my family, before my kids. And I said, you know what, no more longer am I gonna do this, right? And from then on that point, I made a decision. I said, you know what, no longer am I going to be Woggle from Doherty, or, this and that, right? I said, you know what, it's fine. In front of everyone, I'm going to be Robert from here on out. And once I did that, man, you know what I mean? It was powerful because, I took back finally, what was finally me. And, my cousin has a good way of saying it, right? He works at Homeboys, too. And he was like, man, Primo, he's like, Primo's cousin, he's like, man, you were always good. You never had to be Woggle because you were always good at just being Robert, But, here we are, we put this mask on and we create this character and we hide behind that, and it's like, it's almost like it's like a scary little adrenaline rush, So it's almost like an addiction. You know what I mean? You get addicted to this. You know. So it took me all that turmoil, man, to go through. You know what I mean? And you know, so I walked through those doors. You know, and it was the best thing that I ever could have did in my life. Because today, here I am out, 3 years. It's the longest I've ever been out. I got a 19-year-old son. You know, I got a 13-year-old son, and I got a 9-year-old son. And today, I'm a present father, you know. So let's getting back to what a navigator does. He pretty much, or she does, you know, because there's females that are navigators. We meet the trainee where they're at in their life, right? And we got anywhere from people that are getting out of prison from an overturned life sentence to 20 years to people that are getting out from 5 years. And it's amazing because, you know, like as me, like you could have never even, 3 years ago today, like, you know, Gary Powers knows me, he seen me walk in. Like, there's just, this was not in the cards for me to even like be talking in front of a people, you know, in front of a crowd full of people, you know, like my confidence was not even there, right? And, you know, so homeboys helped me out so much to where, like, now I'm able to, like, you know, talk in front of people. Not only that, be brave enough to share my story with them so that way they don't hit a brick wall, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? So, what a navigator does is you know, and we don't only just deal with people that are fresh out of prison. We get people that are off the streets, right? That are battling drug addiction as well, you know? So, it's cool to like get them in a group and have, you know, little group therapy sessions with them, you know what I mean, and have them engage in it, you know, one by one. How's your day from a scale from 1 to 10? And you know, right then and there they might not want to share, but eventually, like over the weeks, you start seeing them more and more express themselves, right? And it's something that we're not familiar with because, you know, we're just not taught to talk like that, you know. But that's when we start, like, you know, more relating, you know, getting to hear their stories and, you know, yeah. So like what a navigator does is pretty much, you know what I mean. We walk alongside our trainees, our fellow brothers and sisters that are, you know, like they got trauma, you know, hurt, their brokenness. You know, we deal with a lot of people that lost their kids. They're trying to get their kids back. You know, a lot of people that are coming off, you know, drug addiction. You know what I mean? So you can only imagine, like, right? So like you know, the reward in itself is seeing the transformation happen. You know what I mean? And like, you know, gaining their family's trust back again. You know, like I said, it's been 2 years, and I finally, you know, my brothers finally told me, like, man, Rob, he's like, I'm proud of you. He's like, when I hear other people that try to like say that they you know they don't know what to do or they can't do it, the ones that are getting out of prison, he's like, if my brother did it, you can do it. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, you know, like just to hear that acknowledgement, like it made me feel pretty proud. You know, like you know, I'm the youngest of 3 boys. You know, we got 4 brothers, so I'm the youngest. You know, and you know, we've been through a lot. You know, and life has taught me a lot. You know, like you know, like I probably would have been a good kid if, you know, like life didn't. You know, life has to happen. You know, and it doesn't come with no handbook. You know, so you know, me growing up, you know, me and my 3 brothers. My mom, you know, we're the best thing that ever happened to her, right? My dad came into her life and had kids, right? She used to party out here in the valley with the Saint Slaves, the biker motorcycle gang, and she was a pretty wild lady, right? They met at a bar, and you know what I'm saying? So like we were the best things that ever happened to her, and then you know, drug addiction came back into her life, you know, through my dad's friend, right? So that caused a lot of trauma in our family, you know, and my dad loved her so much that, you know, even though she did leave us, she came back. But when she came back an addict, you know what I mean? And so, like, you know, I was this young kid with all these emotions, you know, looking for this love that I once had, like, I mean, and it messed me up. But nevertheless, it taught me how to love again, you know what I mean? Like, my dad taught me, like, to forgiveness. And, you know, so you know, we accepted my mom back in with nothing but love, but, you know, like it did mess me up. So during that process, you know, like, you know, man, I went to looking for the streets, you know, like what I wasn't getting at home, any kid, what a kid is not getting at home, he's going to look for it somewhere, you know. And, you know, like at school, for me, it just was hard for me. So like you know what I mean, the teachers didn't have the patience that you know maybe they should have had or could have had. So like you know what I mean, like I turned to the streets, you know, and that became my family for a while, you know. But through all that turmoil, man, like you know what I mean, like I said, for you guys that don't know about Homeboy Industries, it's the biggest, largest gang intervention program that we have in the United States, you know, and it turns people's lives around, you know. Like today, here I am, I got my own apartment, you know. From Homeboys, I was able to transition out to work for Amazon, right? I never thought I could, you know, even see myself leaving Homeboys, you know, because it was just so, it's like a safety net for us, you know, sometimes. But we challenge our trainees to like challenge yourself, you know. So I ended up landing an Amazon gig, right? And I remember the first day I got in the van, like I was so happy. I FaceTimed like my whole family, right? I'm like, look, man, I'm like, can you believe it? Like I felt like I had my own office for one, right? Air conditioning, an Amazon truck, and then I'm like, look, bro, right? I'm like, and look, I'm like, can you believe that? Like they trust me with all these packages, you know what I mean? Like man, I just, you know, like so. That's when I knew right then and there, like, man, like I'm onto something here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's funny because, like, you know what I mean? I tell my trainees, like, there's nothing like making honest money now, you know? Because since I've been out for these 3 years and I've been living honestly, like, I've never had to do not one wrong thing to like, buy a gift for my kids now, to put gas in my tank. A bill's coming, and out of nowhere, like it's a trip because like out of nowhere, some way, shape or form, like I'll either get blessed with something, and it's like I'm you know, man, it's powerful how I make it. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's just a brief introduction about Homeboys. I'm pretty sure you'll hear a lot more from Gary. I'm a little nervous, so I hope I did all right. Thank you.
So here's what I heard from, I heard so much from Robert's story. I'm sure many of you heard similar and different things, but one of the things that I heard from Robert is it's very easy for us to wear masks, to pretend to be people who we expect or want others to think we are, and in reality we're not being true to who we are. And that's a really powerful message, Robert. The other thing I heard you say, it's very easy to blame others for our problems and not take responsibility for our own doing. And that's another really powerful message during this time of year that we have to remember. Another thing that I heard you say, Robert, is that forgiveness is a key to so many things in life. And if we could find the means to be able to forgive, then it's so much easier to move forward. So I don't think you have anything to worry about sharing your story. It was very powerful, very meaningful, and we learned incredible lessons. So thank you. You're going to have time, as I said afterwards, after each of our 4 speakers go, to be able to ask them questions. Russell or Lisa, who wants to go next? Who wants? Oh, I'm not going after. She's so smart.
Hi. My name is Lisa. I'm an alcoholic in recovery. I'm a nice Jewish girl who grew up in the Silicon Valley. And things took a turn for the worse. In August of 2009, I had had enough. I had gone to college, never finished, but I went to college. I was in the corporate world for about 10 years after being a waitress for about 10 years, and my drinking just got out of control. And I vaguely remember the night that I called my dad and I said, "Daddy, I need help." And I was 39 years old at the time. And I said, "I think that I have found a place to go to, and if you don't come pick me up and drive me there, I'm getting in the car and driving myself." And I had already had about a 5th of vodka that day, and he was at my doorstep about 20 minutes later. While I was in this treatment program up in Northern California in San Jose, my parents did what any, I guess, I don't know. My parents did this. They went to Congregation Shir Hadash, which was we are founding family members of in Los Gatos, and they went to Rabbi Aaron and said, "We don't know what to do. We're lost." And she said, "I think there's this Jewish rehab in LA. It's called Beit Teshuvah." And a month later, I was here. I was in Los Angeles. This Northern California girl was in Los Angeles. I didn't know a soul except my grandmother, who at the time lived in Long Beach. And I was given the opportunity to redeem myself, forgive myself, and pay back to others. And I don't mean financially, although I did that too, but in my heart, for their heart. I was able to spend my grandmother's last 9 years with her every Saturday evening. I went to her condo. She and I would go out to dinner. We would talk. We would watch sports. Everything. And until somebody introduced me to some dude, she was my everything. And I know that had I not had the treatment that I was able to receive at Beit Teshuvah, I know that I would have relapsed when I found out that she had died. And I had always prepared myself for that. For 9 years, I had prepared myself to, when grandma goes, I'm hitting the bars. And quite frankly, it was about 3 weeks after she had died, and I went, I never once thought about having a drink. And it was amazing. It was amazing. We talk about in recovery, making a living amends, continuing to have a living amends, which is, for me, is continuing to be the better person that I am today and not going back to that person that I was 13 years ago and previous. Beit Teshuvah, if you don't know, is a long-term residential Jewish substance abuse treatment facility. And when I say long-term, it's typically somewhere between 3 and 12 months, sometimes longer. And everybody gets a counselor and a spiritual advisor and a therapist, and you have a community there. And of course, you don't have to be Jewish to be there. But we're also a full working synagogue, which is just amazing. And we have our own Friday night services every week, and Saturday morning, and Havdalah on Saturdays, and high holidays are coming up, and we're able to have that. And it's very close to my heart because it comes from my roots. I was able just recently, about 6 weeks ago, I was digging through some stuff, and I found my program from my bat mitzvah in 1983. And I knew that the anniversary of my bat mitzvah was coming up. It was August 6th of 83. And so I asked the chaplain who was running Friday night services for that night if I could do the drosh for the Torah portion for that week. And I showed him my program, and I actually did not read what I had read at 13 years old until the day that I on that Friday. And it was amazing, and it was powerful to hear this 13-year-old Lisa and this 52-year-old Lisa talking about the same thing. It was very powerful. We also live streamed it, and unfortunately my parents, I didn't even tell them that I was doing this, but I had somebody clip it for me, my drosh, and I emailed it to my parents, and they called me crying, "That's so beautiful." again, it's a living amends that I'm able to continue doing. Sometimes I think, why did I have to become this alcoholic? Why did I have to go that route? And I have to remember that if I hadn't gone that route, I wouldn't be with you today. I wouldn't be able to share this Selichot service with you. I wouldn't be able to share my story. I wouldn't be able to be here with these amazing people. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I'll thank him later. I'm really an open book. I'm really an open book. I have the ability to. I am blessed with the ability to now work for Beit Teshuvah. I am the intake coordinator, head of admissions at Beit Teshuvah. I get to see people come in really, really, really raw, sometimes from the street, sometimes from prison, sometimes from jail, and I get to watch them blossom. And it's an amazing thing. And I get a lot of people who say, thank you, Lisa, for getting me in here. Thank you for getting me in here. And I look at them and I say, I didn't get you in here. You got you in here. I just said yes. So take that yes and run with it. So I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you for the invitation. Thank you, homeboys. I love your bread. And thank you to my husband, Russell, because I wouldn't have him.
So, Lisa, thank you. I'm sure you all also heard so much wisdom from Lisa's sharing. Here's what I took from Lisa's sharing, that sometimes it's really hard, but so absolutely essential to say out loud to somebody else, I need help. We find that so difficult to do. To be able to admit to the fact that we can't manage and handle everything ourselves, I need help. And the blessing of having somebody in your life to say, okay, here I am to help you. And that's the other thing that I heard Lisa say, the importance of community. That when we are vulnerable and can open ourselves up to say, I need help, that there's going to be somebody there. Maybe not the community that we thought was going to be there. Right? I don't think Lisa ever thought that the community of Beit Teshuvah would be the community that would open up their arms to help guide her to the healing that she continues to work on to this day. But, you know, when we are vulnerable and open ourselves up to that possibility, then we're there. I guess I also learned another thing, which is, can we be those individuals who, when somebody reaches out and says, I need help, that we can step up and help and be community for somebody else. The last lesson, there's many more lessons, but one more lesson that I want to share that I heard from Lisa is that it's so important in the process of tshuva that we look forward and that we don't spend too much time dwelling on the past. Because if we spend too much time dwelling on the past, we're never going to get anywhere that we need to get to. So Lisa, thank you for your wisdom and thank you for sharing those really important messages. And we're going to invite Gary from Homeboys to share his story, and then we're going to conclude with Russell. So, Gary, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. That was amazing. Good evening, everyone. My name's Gary Powers. Can we give a round of applause for Robert, though? 'Cause that's the first time I ever heard him speak. So, I caught on, I was listening to everybody speak, and I caught on to the word reflection, and it's been a long journey for me. And when I think of reflection, what I want to encourage everyone else to do is to be kind to yourself, to love yourself. And the reason why I say that is because along this journey, I was too busy people-pleasing, trying to please everyone else, and trying to be what everyone expected me to be. And when I stopped being what everyone expected me to be, I inhabited who I was. And that's powerful. You know, Father Greg has a thing that says, and the soul knows its worth. That's what happens. So I just want to encourage everybody, have self-compassion. Don't forget, I know we love our children, we love our friends, we love our family, we love all these other things, but don't forget to love yourself along the way. You know, you know, you got to be kind to yourself. You know, I mean, a lot of times we think of God, or I think of God, and I think, God, he's so perfect. But then I got to remind myself not to measure up. You measure up, you've lost. God's perfect, we're not. You know, so don't measure up. You know, and I don't say that for a scapegoat to be like, well, I could do whatever I want because he's perfect. I'm not. It just sometimes when I'm, you know, struggling and striving to, you know, I think of God and I engage the thought. That's another thing. You know, when you think of God, we always think of God, but we forget to engage the thought. So when you think of God, okay, well, does God exist? Well, you got to look for him. Knock and you shall receive. So when you think of God, you want to remind yourself to engage the thought. And sometimes when we think of it, well, when I think of it, sometimes I feel less than, imperfect, not enough, inadequate. And then, and that was always my thoughts. But those were thoughts that, you know, came to me early on as a child because I didn't know my self-worth, you know, because I grew up in a really harsh environment. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but I just want to encourage everybody to have self-compassion. Life is hard, you know. The one thing I encourage you to keep is your sense of humor. You know, shit happens. It does. And I'm serious. You know, I mean, honestly, I stand before you. Everybody that raised me is dead. My mom, my dad, my brother, my stepdad, my uncles, everybody died. My dad just last year on January. So everybody that raised me is dead. And the only thing I could remember was the lessons. And then I remember, well, you didn't lose because they're with you. They're no farther from your hand. You know, because I'm pretty sure sometimes if you think about your loved ones, you can't see them, but you can hear them. You can close your eyes and think of them and you'll be able to hear the lessons that were learned. So I really don't think it was a loss. It was more like a gift. You know, they gave me what they needed to give me and what I needed to receive to get to where I'm going, which is here. And thank you guys for allowing me in your space. You know, just to piggyback what Robert said, I know, you know, I stand before you and, you know, I think I look nice. I have a twin brother. He's the ugly one. Pretty sure he tells everybody the opposite, but I have a twin brother. But, you know, life's hard. And I say this because a lot of times, you know, we have this, it's, people say, don't judge someone for, you know, for a life you didn't live, but when you've been judged, you've learned to judge. Behaviors learn. So I'm going to take you back to my childhood, you know, as an adolescence. So I could paint a picture for you because no psychologically balanced healthy kid chooses what I chose, okay? And so I have a twin brother, and again, he's the ugly one. I'm going to stick to that story. So we were, you know, as growing up, both our parents were heroin addicts, you know. Stuck needles in our arm, heroin addicts, you know, neglected us, abused us physically, the whole nine, you know. And I'm not mad at them, you know, because I don't know the life they lived, you know. So I had a really harsh childhood. You know, I grew up in, well, you know, so because of my parents' addiction to heroin, me and my brother were moved from the household probably at about 5. And my earliest memory was just waking up in a foster home and our parents were black. And I was like, you know, what the WTF? What's going on? Where's mom and dad, you know? And they're giving us, you know, chicken and strawberry milk. I'm like, where's the rice and the beans, tortillas? I'm just like confused. Culturally, I'm confused. Like, what happened? And you know, that's me trying to make light of it even as a kid. So, you know, we were in foster care for about 2 weeks. And I remember me and my brother just, as 5-year-olds, plotting, okay, let's do this. We're leaving. And we got about a half block away before they got us back, you know. I remember us trying to we put all our clothes in a sheet and we were trying to stuff it out the window this big. Stuffing it. We finally got it out. We fell out with it and we got about a half a block. Not because we weren't quick, because we just couldn't carry that much clothes, you know. So, after that, you know, we were given to foster care and then my grandmother came to pick us up. And I thought that was our savior, you know. We were super excited, but she was really cruel, you know. Every day, you know, after school, she used to put us in a hallway with duct tape in our mouth and make us sit in the hallway and say, hey, you know, shut the fuck up. We used to be like, why, Grandma? She goes, I don't want to hear your voice. And by the way, I have 3 beautiful daughters right now, and I could imagine not wanting to hear their voices. It doesn't matter what they do. I've had them walk up to me with a diaper, Daddy, I got poo-poo. Well, you sure do, you know? And so, you know, stuff like that. You know, I used to be eating my food. She walked by, punched me in the mouth. You know, shut up, you little motherfucker. You're going to be just like your dad. Worthless, nothing, a jailbird. And, you know, just all these things as a child, you know, and I used to just think like, well, is this it for me? Is this it for me? Is this like, this is supposed to be my existence, just to be treated like this. And you know, years later having my kids, I couldn't imagine me treating my kids like that. So, you know, just very hostile environment, you know. I used to go to school and people used to make fun of me because we had the same clothes on every day, holes in them. And I remember they used to call me Holy Powers. And I'm like, why are you calling me that? Because I was a kid, because you know what? Your clothes have holes. And so we're gonna call you Holy Powers. Like, all right, you mother Fletchers. But anywho, just a lot of things like that. So, you know, it could mess with a child's self-esteem, their confidence, their self-worth. You really don't have none. And if you grow up in an environment as harsh as I did, you really don't know your worth, you know? You've never seen your true value, you know? And as a child, I don't know if everyone here has kids, you know, what you tell your kids, they believe. Your thoughts are powerful. As you think it, then so be it. That's what it is. So I just went through so many things, and then finally, I'm gonna say finally, I'm not gonna say good riddance, but finally she passed. So I was given back to the care of my mother and father, which things got a little better, you know, but the damage had already been done. So, you know, I didn't care about at that point I was very oppositional. Didn't care about anybody or anything. You tried to tell me something, all I was seeing was this woman trying to belittle me or to make me feel less than, inferior than her. So naturally, anytime everybody tried to tell me something, constructive criticism, or I would just take it, I would be offended. And I would see this woman as like, she's trying to run over me. So, you know, one thing led to another, and because of this, I walked around with this chip on my shoulder, you know. Well, I'm gonna show the world and everybody, and no one's gonna treat me like that again. Those were literally my thoughts. You could ask me to do something, I'd be like, F you do it. I ain't do shit. For what? Because I thought you were trying to bully me. So one thing led to another, and I say that because people, well, why did you join a gang? You know, if my daughter joined a gang, I'd be really confused because I've given them the best of me, everything. You know, and I'm not talking about the next best gift or something you could buy your children. I've given them love, affection, compassion, validation, appreciation, acceptance. My daughters know their worth, you know. And I'll say one day my daughter says, "Daddy, I'm having a birthday party. Can you put a pool in the backyard?" And at that time, we were just ready, and I was like, sure, no problem. How can I bring a pool to the backyard? All right, so I went and bought a Doughboy, 12,000-gallon pool, leveled the yard myself, poured some concrete, and put it up, all for her birthday, which was in May, right? May 9th. And I put this pool up, and I remember I was tired. And I had been there, it had been probably a 2-week job. I'd come home from work after I put this pool. And in my mind, I'm thinking how lucky she is to have someone that loves you. That's what I'm thinking. I put this up, and I'm thinking, hopefully she knows that I love her. Pulls up, water's going in, party's getting ready, burgers on the grill, and she rolls up. She goes, "You know what, Daddy?" Her name's George. She goes, "You know what, Daddy? You're so lucky." I said, "Wait, what?" She goes, "Yeah, you're so lucky." I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because I invited you to my birthday party." I was like, so selfish of me. I was like, here I am, expecting you to give me the accolades for doing this. But I'm lucky to be in your life. And so be it. It's true, because I am. To have them daughters, I'm lucky. But so I provided something that I wasn't given to my children. And I say that to say is because, you know, your two biggest teachers as a child are your parents. You act out what you see, you speak what you hear. So what happens when you don't have none? You know, so in the 80s or 90s, when cops seen us and they're just arresting us, throwing us in jail, nobody asked why. Well, he's no good. Let's demonize him, marginalize him. No good. Lock him up, throw away the key. No, you're just treating the symptoms of a root cause. So if someone would have dig a little bit further, they would have found out whoa, something's going on with this kid. This is why he's in the streets. Because you have no parents, you gravitate to what looks cool, what impresses you. You're young, you're impressionable, you're vulnerable. And you know, then I was young, honestly, I swear, and then I went to prison for 11 years. My 3rd day on the yard, I was like, I'm sorry, I want to go home. This ain't for me. And that's all it took. That moment I stepped there, I was like, no, this is not how I want to live my life. And, you know, if I could fast forward, and we can, you know, if I could fast forward into the future and be like, you know, and go back, but I can't, you know. I had no idea how long-lasting the effects would be on my life, you know. And it took a toll. But luckily, you know, I was given a second chance, and then a 3rd, and a 4th, and a 5th, and a 6th. And well, that's because I was giving myself a chance. But then, you know, I got out of prison, and I remember going to a party with my friends. Oh, we're so happy you're out. I got the latest fashion, $200 Jordans, nice Levi's, fitted hat. And I'm in the house of a family member who became really successful, a salesman. And so he has all his friends there, and I'm out. I'm looking good, whatever. And then, So they're all talking about businesses, 401k, stocks, bonds. I just bought my house. Dude turns to me and says, so what do you do for a living? I thought about this big. You know, and honestly, and I realized, you know, I haven't lived. For the last 20, 30 years of my life, I was just existing. You know, from that moment, I decided to live. And so, you know, and fast forward, I get to, and, you know, my friend Robert talks about the mask, you know. And Shirley Torres says, the person that projects to be the scariest is honestly the most scariest inside. You know, so this whole time I created this identity because of the way I was treated by my grandmother. And I wanted everybody to be afraid of me because I didn't want them to see how scared I was. So you're going to be afraid of me, you're going to respect me. And then, you know, here comes Homeboy Industries, you know. I was provided this environment. Not even provided, this environment was established and I was able to walk through the doors and for the first time take my mask off, you know. And I remember right before I pro'd, I had a friend tell me, you know, hey, he called me, my nickname was Listo, which means smart. I know, it sounds stupid because I'm in jail, so I'm not too smart, right? So he goes, hey, when was the last time you were comfortable in your own skin? And I remember I thought and I thought and I thought about it. Geez, and you know, when he asked me that, I was just so scared. I'm like, why am I scared? And I was thinking like, because you've never been comfortable in your own skin, you know? So he asked me, do you have an answer? I said, yeah, when I was just Gary. And he goes, ain't that something? I said, yeah. So, you know, I went through Homeboys and I dug and I dug and I dug. And that's where I had to go back and find. Not this identity I created, this image that I created because I wanted everybody to fear me, but I had to go back and find myself, you know. And the biggest conversation I ever had was with myself. And my problem was, yeah, it was addiction, but it wasn't so much the addiction. It was the trauma that led me to addiction. When I got to the trauma, there was no more addiction, you know? So when he asked me that question and I dug and I dug, I remember going back, having this conversation with myself, and I could envision this little boy, me, 13 in junior high, and I finally got him. And you know what he said? What took you so long? Thought you weren't coming back for me. So when I found myself, I was able to inhabit who I was. And Homeboy Industries has so much to do with that. I mean, they played a really big part in it. You know, love, validation, appreciation, acceptance, compassion. You know, Father G has this thing on, you know, we have this circle of passion. Circle of compassion, imagine nobody standing outside of it. What type of world we live in? It'd be pretty amazing. So whenever I ask him for something, he says, no. I said, what happened to the circle of compassion? Son, don't hit me with my own shit, all right? So, you know, it took a lot. And then, you know, after prison and going through Homeboys, being able to do the work, you know, to, you know, every day just to become the best version of myself, you know. And Homeboys, and I tell you, my biggest memory I had of Homeboys is when I was standing on a street corner and I was just sleeping. And Father G's coming down, Father Gray's coming down the street with a briefcase. And he looks dead at me and he's just in awe. And I'm thinking like, who is this guy gay? What's going on here? You know, he's just looking at me, and I said it to be funny because those are my thoughts. He's just looking at me, and he's just starry-eyed. He's in awe. He says, hey, son. I said, what's up? He goes, hey, you're the son that I would have been God for. And then I was like, and my first thought was like, me? Why? My second thought was like, why not me? Why not me? And then in that day, I see my true value as a person, my worth. I wasn't what everybody painted me out to be. Yeah, I made some mistakes, but you're not your biggest mistake. And everybody deserves a second chance. So I say this to say is that we're all worthy of second chances. Life's hard, man. You know, you got to be kind to yourself, you know. You know, a lot of times we demonize our own selves, you know. And one thing if I could encourage everybody to do is, hey, don't take your thoughts too seriously. They're just thoughts. They're just thoughts. Let them go in and go out. It's what you do after the thought. You know, be kind to yourself. Love yourself. A lot of times we get caught up, you know, trying to love everybody else. And then in the process, we're depleted. You know, you can only give what you got, you know. And if you haven't gotten it because you're giving to everybody else, well, hey, you know. So just be kind, you know, have some self-compassion. And you got to remember, you know, just be kind, you know. It's always nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice, you know. So let's be nice to ourselves and love one another. And, you know, and remember that everybody's worthy of a second chance. We're not our biggest mistake. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gary. Such powerful wisdom from Robert, from Lisa, from Gary. I know you got so much from Gary. As you got from Robert, as you got from Lisa. What I heard is that important message that only God is perfect. We're not, and we shouldn't strive to be perfect, because when we strive to be perfect, we're going to fail, and we're going to internalize that failure, and then we may not be the best that we can be, because it's not about being perfect, because only God is perfect. It's just about being kind and recognizing where we need to improve on and moving on that, but learning to love ourselves is the most difficult thing. But when we can learn to love ourselves, it's so much easier to love other people and overlook their imperfections and not worry so much about why they don't meet the standard that we expect of them. And Gary, that's what I heard from your beautiful words. That, and can we be a little less judgmental of, first of all, of ourselves, but of other people? Why do we have to walk around judging everybody and assuming something about other people? Can't we just be a little bit more accepting? So really, Gary, thank you for the powerful message that you shared with us. And we're going to turn to you, Russell, who, by the way, was the inspiration for me for this evening. I was privileged to attend the Beit Tshuva Gala back in May, where a family member was being honored that evening, and I heard Russell share his story. And I said, Russell, you need to come to our Selichot services, but I don't want to put you on here all by yourself. So we're going to have you come with a few other people, and you're going to inspire us, and God willing, help us do the work that we need to do to continue to grow. So here's Russell, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi, and good evening, everybody. Yeah, it's amazing that moment in time that you heard me speak in May at Beit Tshuva's Gala. As soon as you came up to me and asked me if I would speak at a Selichot service, I knew the answer was going to be yes, and I am so grateful for the opportunity and for your courage to bring a panel such as this to a congregation such as this, and in the hopes that as we prepare to enter the seasons of the high holidays, that we look at the work that needs to be done, that we look at the mission that we have, and we take serious, at least I take serious, the obligation to live a life of holiness. B'Tselem Elohim, right? I was created as a holy soul. Everybody in this room was created as a holy soul. What are you doing today to honor that? Today I am speaking here in front of all of you, and I am so grateful for the opportunity, and I want to thank Rabbi Ron in the back over there. I know Rabbi Ron from many years ago at Beit Tshuva. He was a spiritual advisor. And Ron and I, every Friday, would take a van load of residents from Beit Tshuva down to Homeboy Industries for a 12-step group, Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous. And we would stop at the Homegirl Cafe, and we would get coffee cake and coffee. And it was some of the most cherished times that I had. And Ron, I have never forgotten that. I was so honored and blessed to see you this evening, and it's wonderful that you're here. I love you, Ron, and I hope we can get together again soon. So I want to tell you a little bit about who I am, why I'm here, and why I feel such an obligation to be here tonight and to share my story with you. You know, as I look around this room, I don't know, other than Ron, obviously, I don't know any of you. But you all look like my family. You all look like the people I grew up with, grew up around. I grew up as a Jewish boy in Brooklyn, New York. My parents raised me. My dad left when I was about 5 or 6. I had a brother and a sister. My grandparents, I used to go to shul with them. They were Orthodox. I called it holiday Jews, though. My family, my mom, my mother, and my sister, we were holiday Jews. Passover, definitely Rosh Hashanah. I knew that you had to fast on Yom Kippur, right? But those things were important because they were important to my family, so they were important to me. But there came a point in time when I was very young that what was important to my family no longer became important to me, because what became important to me was me. I lost sight I lost sight of family, I lost sight of God, I lost sight of tradition, and I became very selfish. When I was very young, I was very afraid, I was very alone, and I used to act out a lot. I started smoking weed when I was about 8 years old. I started drinking beers about the same age, and the first time I ever got arrested, I was 13 years old. I was in a park cutting school, which was one of my favorite things to do. And this story may be very similar to someone you know, one of your children, one of your neighbor's children. I was hanging out in the park and I made a $5 bet with my sister that I can hit a passing train with a beer bottle. So I finished the beer because I'm not an idiot. And then I threw the bottle and it wound up going through an open window on the train and hit a transit officer in the head. I didn't realize it at the time, but one of the most powerful lessons I learned years later looking back at that is if you don't want it to happen, don't release it. Whether it's your speech, whether it's your action, whether it's your doing, if you don't want to suffer the consequences of the ripple effect, then don't do it. Because once I let that beer bottle go out of my hand, I had no control over where it was going to go or what it was going to do. I wound up getting arrested and I went to my first drug program at the age of 13 years old. I was in that program for about 3 years. And the entire time I was in that program, I never did a drink and I never took a drink and I never did a drug. And I thought that was fantastic. I was doing great. My life's going to be back on track. But I also never addressed the reasons that brought me to a drug treatment program at the age of 13. My low self-esteem, my inadequacies, my insecurities, my anger at my father for leaving when I was young, my feeling less than, my always wanting more of. I never addressed that. So when I went back to the public school system, I started acting out again. But now I was 17 years old, so I was doing a lot of crazy things. I was the juvenile delinquent that today they would call terrorist activities. I was the guy the teacher did not want in the classroom. And eventually I got tired of even making that trip to school every day, and I had my mom sign me out. After I turned 17, I had my mom sign me out of school. I was a high school dropout at the age of 17. I had no desire, no direction, no idea what I was going to do with my life. I just knew that I didn't want to be going to school. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was growing up in Brooklyn, disco scene was big, Saturday Night Fever was big. I can't believe I watched it again today. That movie had such a huge impact in my life. I wanted to be Tony so bad. I wanted to be that Italian guy bopping down the street on Bensonhurst with the beatbox up on his shoulder, listening to that disco music, right? I had my hair slicked back, polyester shirt, silk pants, gold chains, right? I had the look, I had the talk, I had the image, all because of the masks that we wear, right? Because I didn't want anybody to know what a scared little boy I truly was, right? I was bar mitzvahed at the age of 13, started smoking weed again right after that, right? Didn't follow up on anything. Eventually, the dead-end life wasn't doing me any good. I decided, you know what, we need to do something. I had a friend, and we had this great idea. We were going to go upstate New York, and the drug program I was in, they had 100 acres of land up there, horseback riding, snowmobiling, skiing. We built it up to be Eden in our minds. And we decided, let's go up there. Well, how are we going to go up there? We'll steal a van. Brilliant! Right? Master criminals we are, right? But my friend knew how to do it. So one night we went out and stole a van, parked it down, about a block and a half away from his house. 2 o'clock in the morning, we go to his house, we go to sleep, wake up the next morning, someone stole our stolen van. Yeah, you laugh, I was mad, right? Because now I gotta walk, right? So we're walking and we're walking down a big street, Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn, if you've ever been there, and my friend sees a van. And he's like, hey, Russell, come on, we can get that one. And I stood there and I looked. And it was the first time in my life I ever said no. That pleasing you was not as important. And he said, come on, man, we can do it. We'll jump in, we'll jump out. I said no. Now, mind you, I didn't have some white light moment. God didn't raise his finger down and touch me on my heart and heal me. I just thought it was a really stupid idea. It obviously belonged to the people doing construction on the house right there, and I just didn't want to get busted. So I start walking down the street. Sure enough, he jumps in the van, he's trying to hot wire it. Guy comes running out of the house yelling, "La, la, la," whatever he was yelling in Italian. Come on, let's go. We run, we're hiding in the bushes. About 10 minutes go by. We thought the coast was clear. We get out, we go down. We're sitting in a bagel shop. I'm having my bagel and coffee for breakfast. Here come the cops. Get on the ground. They come in, draw down on us. They found the burglar tools. Guy was right there. Yeah, that's the guy that tried to steal my van. Right, how ironic. I wasn't even trying to steal that van. But again, I did steal one the night before. Right, so I wasn't totally innocent. So here I am, 17 years old. I'm a high school dropout, no job, no desire, no direction. Now I'm facing a felony. What in the world am I going to do? I had no idea. When I got home after being arrested, my stepfather, who my mom had married, he hit me so hard he knocked me out of the chair. I knew that wasn't what I wanted. I always had an idea in the back of my mind. One day I maybe join the Navy, travel the 7 seas, see the world, go to exotic places, meet great people. So I went down to the Navy recruiter's office in Brooklyn, New York. And I went in there and I told the Navy recruiter, "Hey man, I'm a high school dropout, I got a pending felony. Is there anything you could do for me?" Navy recruiter said, "Son, there ain't nothing I can do for you." I said, "Is there anybody that can?" He says, "You could try the Marines." I go, "Where are they?" He said, "They're right next door." So I walked next door and I walked into the Marine Corps recruiting office in early 1982 and I told that Marine Corps recruiter that same sad tale of woe. And I said, "Is there anything you can do to help me out?" He said, "Sure, you sign right here on the dotted line. We'll take it down to the Marine Corps. We'll go to court. We'll get the charges dropped and you'll be a United States Marine." I said, "Where do I sign?" And that's what I did. In May of 1982, I went to Parris Island, South Carolina and went to boot camp and became a United States Marine. That was the best thing I ever did in my life. At 17 years old, I was feeling proud, I was feeling good. My mom came down and see me graduate from boot camp, which was the hardest damn thing I ever did in my life. And that's saying something when you hear a little bit where I'm going. But I also felt inadequate, insecure, unsure, afraid. I was still that little Jewish boy from Brooklyn, New York, wearing a mask, trying to hide. And after being in the Marines a couple of years, doing things that they asked me to do, I was out in Camp Pendleton in 1984, and I was stationed in Fleet Marine Force unit. And I was hanging around a bunch of guys, and I used to put on that mask of false bravado, and we'd sit in the bars and we'd drink it up, and we'd tell all these stories, and we'd have all these conversations. I was Marine Corps infantry. I was a mortar specialist. And we'd sit around and we'd have these conversations, and we'd ask each other, "You think you can kill somebody?" "Damn right, I'd whack anybody in this room. I don't care." That was that mask, that false bravado I had put on. Well, it turns out, in June of 1984, it was no longer just an idle conversation. There was a woman who hired me and 4 of the Marines to kill her husband. I became a willing participant in the taking of another man's life. On the night of August 10th, 1984, Staff Sergeant Carlo Trioni died on the side of the road, North River Road in Oceanside, California. And I was the driver of the vehicle when his life was taken. Because I didn't have the courage, I didn't have the strength to stand up and say no. I was afraid to be seen as a weak link. So I went along because I wanted to feel accepted. 2 days later, I was arrested. I was 19 years old. I was charged with first-degree murder, murder for hire, and murder while lying in wait. The last 2 are special circumstances in the state of California. That means at 19 years old, I was eligible for the death penalty. And I was guilty. And I knew that they could do it. After about 3.5 years being in the county jail, I wound up taking a deal for 26 years to life in state prison. My first 17 years of incarceration, if it went in a syringe, it went in my arm. If I could drink it, I drank it. If I could smoke it, I'd smoke it. I did everything I could to dull the pain, make the anguish, the sorrow, the suffering go away as best I could. Because something I didn't even think about at that moment are those ripples I spoke about earlier. The impact that my actions had on not just the victim, but the victim's family, the victim's children, my family, the Marine Corps, the community, my senseless self. senseless, selfish actions were devastating to so many. And I refused to admit it, I refused to accept it. Until finally one day, I was sitting in the dining room and I heard a woman named Agnes Gibney. She was a survivor of a violent crime. The Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles brought a victims' reconciliation seminar into the prison I was in, and I heard the testimony of Agnes Gibney, a woman probably about that tall, but had the strength of 4 lions. And the part that got me the most is she wanted to forgive the person that murdered her son, but he would never admit it, he would never ask for forgiveness, and he would never give an explanation as to why he took the life of Agnes's son. That hit home with me, because for all those years I was blaming my crime partners, I was blaming the people that ratted me out, I was blaming society, I was blaming you. I was angry, I was hurting, and I was blaming everybody but myself. And I went to a board of parole hearings for suitability to be released as a lifer. I wound up getting 26 years to life. So I was going to a hearing, and I was having a conversation with the commissioner, and we were talking about 12-step programs, amends, forgiveness. And he asked me if I ever tried to make amends. And at that time, I told him no. And he said, why not? And I said, because it says right there in the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm not supposed to try and make an amends if I think it's going to do further harm or damage to the person I'm trying to make amends to. I hid behind that as an excuse. And he told me, okay, what about if we look at the other side of that coin? What else could it possibly do? And it was the first time in my life I gave it serious consideration. And I said, maybe it could bring closure. And he said, yeah, maybe. And I went back, and I didn't know what to do. And I was in touch with Beit Shuva. I reached out to Beit Shuva. They have an alternative sentencing division. And I got some helpful starters from the rabbi and the alternative sentencing people. And I wrote an amends letter, and I'd like to share it with you this evening. These infernal things. Dear Mrs. Trioni, Shalom Aleichem. I wish peace upon you and all of your loved ones. My name is Russell Harris, and I am writing this letter to you to try and express to you my deep sense of remorse and regret over the loss of your son, Carlo. Please allow me to express my condolences. I want to reach out to you to tell you how saddened and sorry I am, as well as how guilty I am. I am one of the Marines responsible for the murder of your son. I know that nothing I say is adequate and cannot change the loss that I caused you. I have not written this letter to you sooner because it was my sincere belief that it would just bring you more sadness and pain, and that is something I never wanted to do again. But several days ago, I heard the testimony of Agnes Gibney, a mother who also lost her son in a tragic murder. It was the first time I have ever heard from the survivor of this kind of tragedy. I know now that you deserve this letter despite my reservations. In the summer of 1984, I was a scared and insecure 19-year-old boy. I tried very hard to be accepted. I did not possess the courage to not only not be involved, but to stop the murder of your son. I had no right to, but I became a willing participant in the taking of your son's life. At that time, I placed no value on anyone's life, including my own and your son's. I cannot restore the life that was taken, nor can I make up for your loss. I have and will continue to live a life dedicated to living morally and ethically in the name of Carlo. Ms. Trioni, I will not ask for your forgiveness, but I will tell you how truly sorry, shamed, and remorseful I am for my actions. I will continue to regret the choices I made for the rest of my life. If there is any way I can be of service and helpful to you and your family, I am here to do this. As a Marine, Staff Sergeant Carlo Trioni served his country with honor and pride. It is my fervent prayer that he is now guarding heaven's scenes. I wish nothing but God's blessings onto you, sincerely and with deep regret. I share this evening because we're talking about forgiveness. And it wasn't until I wrote that letter that I actually began to forgive myself. And it started with taking responsibility for the things that I had done, by owning my actions and not blaming everyone else for all my woes and troubles. My family, God love them, they stayed by my side. And it was getting rough. My mom was getting elderly, and she was having a recurrence of lung cancer. When I went to the parole hearing for the 5th time and I was finally found suitable for parole, there's a 150-day review process, and on the 151st day, my brother called Sacramento and found out that they were going to release me from prison. And I called my brother and he told me. Everybody in my family knew except my mother. My next collect phone call from a prison phone was to my mom. And she answered the phone the way she did every time I called her. Hi, baby. I was always her baby. And I told her, Mom, I'm coming home. That was the happiest she had been. It turned out I did 27 years in prison. And it was that night when I called her that she passed away. So I never got to be with my mother again. And yet I feel her in this room. I feel her presence, I feel her love, I feel her gifts. Every time I talk about her and I share this story about her, and I believe that she gave up her life that night so that she could be with me for the rest of mine. I have finally forgiven myself for the things that I have done. And I live a life of purpose and obligation and teshuva, repair, repentance. When I got out of prison, about a month later, I went to Beit Shuva, and it was right around the time of the high holidays. First night I ever was at Beit Shuva was for Friday night Shabbat service, and I knew I was home. And then the high holidays were coming up. And this moment of time is so important to me as I prepare myself for what I hope will be a glimpse of the throne room. I need to make sure I'm doing the things I need to do on a daily basis to not only prepare my presence, right? No one knew what I was going to say when I got up here, and half of you were probably shocked, and that's okay. I clean up nice, as do you all. But only I know what's in my heart and my soul other than God. And I need to prepare that as we come into this high holiday season, as we pound our chests and we ask for forgiveness. Don't just do it when the rabbi tells you to stand in a high holiday service. Do it every day. Forgive yourself. Forgive those that have transgressed against you, knowingly or unknowingly. Lead with an open heart. I wish you all the best of a high holiday. I wish you all love and peace. And I thank you for allowing me to spend this moment of time with you. Thank you.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what any of us can say to all four of you for just teaching us so powerfully the words that we recite all the time. Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu machalanu ki pashanu. Forgive us, God, for we have sinned. Take away the pain of our lives. And each one of you so vulnerably and courageously shared your stories with us this evening. Russell, the way you taught us to remind ourselves that forgiveness is the most difficult and yet the most healing and most important gift that we can give to ourselves and that we can give to our fellow human beings. The most important gift that we can give to ourselves to make us a little bit more whole, just a little bit more whole, to understand a little bit more that God loves us even in our imperfections, as you said, Gary. That God never, ever stops loving us. God never gives up on us, so why should we give up on us? Why should we do something that God doesn't do? Why should we think that we're better than God or stronger than God, that we can't forgive ourselves and forgive those around us? It's that simple, but it's not simple at all, as we all know. It's incredibly difficult. So Robert and Gary and Lisa and Russell, your stories are powerful, and God willing, we will just take a little bit of the lessons that you taught us this evening and carry them with us into our high holiday season. And as I said, I have handouts I'm going to have you all write. So would you mind? And while these are going around, there's a text that I am sharing with you in the passages also, which we'll look at. But while they're being passed around with some pencils, so you can write for a few minutes, let me ask you if you have questions for our four panelists. You guys are willing to answer some questions? Okay, so Gary, Robert, Russell, and Lisa have been open and courageous. If you have questions, please don't hesitate, share. Now is the moment while these are being passed around. Yes, Elena. So a moment of gratitude that she shares, that we are so grateful and appreciative of the four of you. No questions. Michael.
Hello, you know, home is our body, and also ego comes from home. And ego, the blood inside of others.
So Michael reminds us that home begins right here, right in our hearts, in our bodies, in our physical being, and we have to hold on to that in order for healing. Anybody else? Yes, Ofer.
Industry, and how do we as family members, as community, help people who aren't there yet, who aren't ready to accept responsibility for their actions, and who are still blaming everyone else?
So just want to make sure everybody heard the whole question that Ofer said, because it was a really important question. How do we help people who have not yet gotten to the point where Robert and Gary and Lisa and Russell got to in their own lives? What can we do as family members, as friends, as community, when people still blame themselves?
Try to answer this the best I can. All right. So what is your name, brother? Ofer? Gary. You know, the thing about healing is, you know, homeboys, we have this thing to where healing is super important. So we don't shy away from it. We don't run with it. We like to think of it as your wound is where the light shines through. So we talk about it. We're proactive about it. You know, it's not something we sweep under the rug, because if you do, it's still there. So with healing, I like to say is, you know, you fall down, you cut yourself, you still got to address it. If not, it's not going to heal. And for those of us that like to foster healing, we're not going to help no one come to a place of healing if you haven't dealt with your own pain. But to answer that question is, I mean, like you said, you know, being accountable, holding yourself responsible, and just being willing to do the work. But you know, in all reality, it starts with you forgiving yourself. Because a lot of times with healing, we hang on to it. And so what we do is I've done something bad. Okay, so you feel bad, you feel guilty. Now then you identify as your biggest mistake. Because I've done this, I'm unworthy of love. I don't deserve love. I'm a piece of crap. How could I? But you know, in the bigger scope of things, well, we're all guilty by sin just by thought alone, you know? And everybody does things on a daily that isn't right with God. And I mean, so if I stole a pack of cigarettes and you murder someone, if God's perfect, who's getting into heaven? Either one of us? So I think a lot of it has to do with holding yourself accountable, but allowing yourself to start the process of healing, you know? And like I said, a lot of it has to do with understanding that you're not your biggest mistake. Nobody's perfect. We shouldn't measure up to anybody. God's perfect, I'm not. You know, I can't measure up to you, you can't measure up to me. Then in this competition, we both lost. So I think a lot of it has to do with self-compassion and, you know, accountability, but also in that is being kind to yourself. You know, there's a correlation of things that influence a person to make mistakes. But at the end of the day, I can't judge someone for the shoes that they live in, where I'm biologically different. Someone else can respond to trauma differently than I respond to it and cause them to make a irrational decision in haste. I can't compute for that. I don't know why they did it, but my only thought is to forgive the person, you know, and forgiving someone else is also forgiving yourself, you know. So I just think, you know, my thoughts on it is, and it's kind of hard to get to that point, but when you get to that point to where you understand that, hey, I'm not perfect, I'm not my biggest mistake, then you allow forgiveness to spill in, you know, and that's where true healing comes.
Thank you.
Sure.
You know what? Yeah, you kind of summed it up right there. But you know, no, you know, at Homeboys, you're asking about Homeboys. It's just that, so like, you know, just like anybody else, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we come in there as former drug addicts. You brought up the treatment facility that you go to, and you see people that are really like broken. And I mean, when I mean broken, it's like you see them when they have zero self-esteem, you know what I mean, or zero confidence, you know what I mean. And you know, it's funny because my cousin used to tell me, like, man, when I first got out, he would always tell me, and he would tell me this in front of everyone, and it would embarrass me, and it would make me feel like kind of weird. He'd be like, Breams, you're blessed and highly favored, right? And I think I heard the man say that, you know, we're all brought into this world holy, you know what I mean? Like, we got this holiness in us, you know, it's up to us whether we use it or not, right? And so he would tell me that all the time, and I would hate it, because I'd be like, man, blessed and highly favored, like, you're really putting me on the spot, like, I don't feel that. And at Homeboys, what we do right there is, you know, we love on them until they can love themselves, you know? So, you know, if you're asking what to do when someone's struggling with trying to love themselves, it's like, you know, love on them, man. You know, I got a 19-year-old son right now. He's addicted to pills, you know. And, you know, I had just left him right now. And I'm in the process of, I had him in Homeboys, and I'm just, like, truthful with him, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be your friend, you know. I'm going to be your dad, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, like, I grew up when my mom came back, an addict, and, yeah, you know what I mean? In the 90s, it wasn't right to get high with your mom, smoke weed, you know what I mean? It just wasn't right. Now, you know, the society, how it is now, it's like, it's not, like, looked on upon. So, like, I grew up like that. My brothers, we grew up like that, and we will not be like that with our kids. So, you know, to this day, like, I will not drink with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's just, you know, you gotta be real with people, you know, and love them until they can love themselves. And if you do have to love them from a distance, then you have to do that, you know. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, we'll take 2 more questions. Yeah, Carrie. So, did you get that? Love him even more. Love on him. Love on him. I like that. Love on him. Carrie.
So all of you, thank you for your stories, for your life out there. I'm not sure I could do that, for sure. You all had a common theme, which, and I hate to use this word, forgive me if I do, but you all had an epiphany in life that you were going to change. Something in your brain said, or something in your life caused you to do that.
How do you help people and if they don't? Yeah, Lisa.
So because I work in the admissions department at Beit Teshuvah, I get this a lot. I get your question a lot. Because I talk to way more family and friends than I do the actual person who needs to come in. And what I tell people is, I know how much you love whomever, your child, your friend, your grandchild, whomever. I know how much you love them. I know how badly you want this for them. They need it at least half as bad as you want it for them. How do we get to that point? That's the hard part. I don't know where my epiphany came from. I can tell you, part of my story is I had been, this treatment center that I went to in Northern California, I had been calling that treatment center every day for 2 weeks before I actually walked through the door. I wasn't there yet. I just wasn't there yet. I don't know what that click or that turn in my brain was that was my day. Just like I don't know how I have been sober this entire time and have never relapsed, which is such a big part of recovery, is relapse. I was actually told once in early recovery that relapse is a part of recovery, but it doesn't have to be your part of recovery. And I've always remembered that. It doesn't have to be my part of my story. So how do we get them to that point? Just what Robert said, you love on them. You let them know that they are there. If I didn't, my parents never said to me, you have a problem, we're here for you if you need it. I just knew. I just knew that my parents were always going to be there for me. I knew that I could always call them. But I don't know what that little snippet was. I just know that I grabbed onto it and I ran with it. And I ran to LA. Go Giants.
Yeah, of course. So, I don't know many people that have had an epiphany. Usually what happens is people have hit their bottom. And the bottom is different for everybody. Your bottom is determined when you stop digging. As bad as you think life is today, continue on the path of self-destruction. Continue down the path of being an addict, of being hurtful, and you can get lower and lower and lower than any depth you ever thought possible. When you are wrapped up in the bounds of addiction, there is no depth to what you will do to dull the pain, the anguish, the agony, the hurt, the suffering that you are feeling. My sober date is January 1st, 2001. That's the last time I had a mind-altering substance. That was after 17 years of using, and I was still in prison. And it was not from an epiphany that I stopped. It was from the cops raiding us, right? Sometimes we call it the nudge from the judge, right? People have all kinds of terms and phrases for it. But I didn't want to get caught anymore because I already knew they had enough to keep me in prison for the rest of my life, and I didn't want to give them any more. So maybe that was part of an epiphany, right? That I knew enough to know I don't want to make things worse. But I certainly didn't know how to make them better at that time. That takes a long time. That takes years and a lot of help. And I hope that helps to answer.
So we're going to take one more question because our panelists have been here for a long time, and they should have their evening back, especially because it was Robert's grandchild's birthday today. And he, well, the birthday wasn't today, but the birthday party. But it doesn't matter. The birthday party was today, and here he is. So, okay, last question. Yeah, Judy.
It's not really a question. I want to commend all of you on being able to share your story and to commend you on being able to stand in front and say that you have Shiva and that you've shared with your parents, your family members. 15 years ago, my nephew was a closet alcoholic and hit the bottom, as you said, hit the lowest of lows. And he enrolled in Beit Shiva. And he came out of that program, making Shiva to all of us in the family, to all of those family members who he could. And he came out a changed person. He enrolled in the Navy, enlisted, he was about to go into the service. And unfortunately, at 21, he was hit by a car and he died. But to this day, our family is blessed by what Beit Shiva did for him, and that he came out of that program and a new person, and that he was able to make amends in his life.
Judy, I just want to follow up and say that, while there's amazing organizations, and all of you on a regular basis, I'm sure, do good work in giving tzedakah, in giving charity, but two organizations that you should never forget about are Homeboy Industries and Beit Tshuva. They can always use additional funding to be able to literally save lives. And there is no greater mitzvah, no greater commandment than we have than to save a life. So if we can't do it directly on the ground like the navigators or those who work at Beit Tshuva, then maybe this is the way that we can do it. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to say thank you once again to Lisa and Russell and Robert and Gary. And you guys have been here for a long time, so you are off the panel to enjoy the rest of your Saturday night evening. Before we break for dessert, the source, have a seat for a second. What I gave you is this wonderful midrash from Rabbi Pinchas Shapiro of Koretz about doing tshuva. And there's 5 verses that he chooses, each one representing one of the letters of the word teshuvah. Wholehearted shall you be with God. I have set God before always. Love your fellow as you love yourself, and all your ways know God and walk modestly. So something to hold on to perhaps for these holidays. But if you haven't answered these questions, answer the questions. On the back of the page, when you have a minute, go online, go to YouTube, take a look at this beautiful song, Lifhor Nachon, to make the right choice. Listen to it and let it hopefully inspire you for these holidays. But see if you can answer these 3 questions based upon the incredible stories that we heard from Robert, Gary, Russell, and Lisa. And in about 2 minutes, we'll break for dessert.
And once you're done answering the questions, please hold on to your pencils. You will need them again.
And you should have a chair. So if you can take one of those chairs, we're not using them anymore, if you don't mind. Thank you.
So when you do finish answering those questions, which is hopefully a little bit of work for you to take with you into the holidays, there is a beautiful dessert reception thanks to the gracious generosity of Temple Aliyah. And then we're going to come back here in about 15, 20 minutes after you schmooze and eat fill yourself up with delicious foods for a very meaningful and beautiful, as Alex said, soulful Selichot service.
Don't listen, we're going to be rehearsing a little bit.
So then in that case, I would invite us all to leave the sanctuary so they can rehearse here after you finish answering those questions.
Okay. Good. And that's a good amount of sound too. Beautiful. And then the beautiful, beautiful. All right. That's it. But play whatever you're comfortable with. Do whatever you feel. Yes, do it. Yeah. Okay. I'm a wrong song. It'd be fun though. Yeah. Nice, nice. Ain't Eloheinu, Egypt, originally. Yes.
They can be from other places too.
I like to say Egypt was the Nashville of the ancient world. So all the instruments, all the stuff came from there originally, and then kind of spread around. Yes. Okay, much better, but it's still. Yeah. Yeah. But we're good. If I go Monday night to the I told him I couldn't come, I just don't feel it. But if I go, are you planning to go to that thing?
I think I'm gonna go.
Yeah?
I think I'm gonna.
Maybe I'll go and you'll play some drum.
I should bring.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That would be really nice. I'll talk to him. Maybe I'll just come and do it.
I think there's gonna be a lot of people.
Yes. Still doing it. I'm not doing it. It's just too much trouble.
It's too hard.
I could.
I was unplugged.
It's too much trouble. It's not worth it. All right, I'll just take it. Can you do me a favor? I think that there was a stand down there. I see. It looks
Just like this.
It looks yellow. It looks yellow and black, I think. Is there one down there? All right, maybe it's not. I don't know what happened. I saw it all day. Okay. It's all right. It's weird. I saw it all day just right there, and it's not there, then it's somewhere.
Did you hear about this?
All right.
He did tell me that he did.
Lo fashanu.
Okay, like the rest of us. So, good question. Yes. I hope I have an answer, but I came here to help.
And then let the kids figure out
Whatever.
you know.
Stupid. Come on.
Oh, see, your son yesterday.
He was here yesterday.
Oh my God, he was watching the dobro player, man.
He said, son can play guitar. He's a good rhythm player.
Yeah.
You.
Oh yeah.
No, you. He was like,
Oh me.
I do, but it's so hard. Even though he shared in music, he felt. He just, and it was our spirituality and our connection. And so my therapy is helping me to stay with that image. To stay with that image. And you know, the trick healing from such a loss is to turn to remember the memories of the wonderfulness and the rather than the pain that there's a relief in the memory in that you had what you had. Rather, you know, like when in the beginning, I couldn't look at the picture. You know, it was so beautiful. But right, but now I'm, you know, it's a good thing. And what I'm doing now is I'm relating and remembering to how we were together in this yes.
I wouldn't have said I agree.
You have to create whatever's going on now. Right. That's right. Yeah. Michelle. She wants you.
Really doesn't lose much, but oh yeah, it does. Whatever. I missed most of the game. Well, I just got one because my book flopped. I really. I'm gonna stand on it.
Say your book rock.
It just see it's kind of all. See what it does. I've come close to dropping it a few times. Only a couple more back there. I don't know where they are. I think they got the last two. I don't. You can look, but. Oh, there are. Where were they? Down the. Ah, okay. That's good. It's hard to see.
You know what? When you sit down, though, it's not.
Okay. I'm learning to play in the flat keys.
Singing in the bathroom.
Hello on live stream out there. We're just about getting ready. We had a little snack, and it's turned into a snack and a schmooze. So I invite everyone to please come in from out in the Galleria as we are about to. Let's just play some little night music. We'll play the Hana Shamalah. Okay. We're going to begin our service this evening with the shofar. And we're going to sing the words from our daily prayers. Tikaba shofar gadol lecherutenu. The great shofar is sounded for freedom. And as we examine our lives, as we examine our past year, we think about how we can make the world a better place. We can make ourselves better people, as we heard so beautifully a little earlier. Tikaba shofar gadol lecherutenu. Tika, please rise. Tika b'shofar. Tika b'shofar gadol lecherutenu. Sound the great shofar for freedom. Sound the great shofar for Tika b'shofar gadol You may be seated.
You get in the mood for the Amin Norim when you hear something like that? You know, Selichot, by the way, in Sephardic tradition, if you didn't know, every morning they do it during the month of Elul, blow the shofar at the end of the service, and Shachrit, except not on Shabbat. It's a way of letting us know that the high holy days are coming, those Yamim Norim, days of awe. Selichot services in the Ashkenazi tradition the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah, unless it's not the Saturday night before, then it's the Saturday night before the four, the Saturday night, right? And why? Because you need 4 days at least from Selichot to Rosh Hashanah. And why 4 days? According to one rabbinic response, it was modeled after Egypt. When the Israelites were commanded to take the lamb for the offering that night of the Exodus and told to take it on the 10th of the month and then to check it for each of those days and to offer it up at the end of the 14th, the beginning of the 15th day when they would leave. 4 days they checked that lamb to make sure it was perfect enough to offer up to God. And so from the rabbi standpoint, if you're going to take 4 days to check for the lamb of the sacrifice, we need at least 4 days to check ourselves. 4 days to prepare before we stand before God. So what Selichot is about, beginning to think about those preparations. You're going to be able to follow in our Selichot booklet that we have. So if you'll open up page 2. There are 3 rungs to the ladder of prayer. Third best is to talk about prayer. Second best is to pray. Best is to be prayer. According to Rashi, King David said, "Because I always pray to you, I am like a living prayer." Tonight, as we prepare for the High Holy Days, we are like a living prayer.
We begin with Ashrei. We'll be reciting this responsively. Your part will sound like this. Bum, 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 bum. Repeat, please. Dun, 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 dun. Again. Bum, 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 bum. The second half will be bum, 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 ba-dun. Dum, bum, 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 ba-da. Let's put the two together. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. One last time. This is sure we've got it in our minds. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Hodia hallelujah selah. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo. Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai Eloham. Tehillah leDavid. Haromimcha Elohai HaMelech v'abarecha shimcha le'olam va'ed. Bechol yom abarechecha v'halela shimcha le'olam va'ed. Gadol Adonai mulav me'od v'ligdulato ein cheker. Dor ledor yeshabach ma'asecha ugvurotecha yadidu. Hadar kavod hodecha v'divrei niflotecha asicha. Lezuz dorotecha yomeru ugdulatecha asaprena. Zecher avtucha yabiu v'tzidkatecha yeranenu. Chanun v'rachum Adonai erech apayim ugdol chesed. Tov Adonai lakol v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Yotucha Adonai kol ma'asecha v'chasidecha yevarechucha. Kevod malchutecha yomeru ugvuratecha yedaberu. Lehodia livnei ha'adam gevurotav וכבוד הדר מלכותו. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים. עיני כל אליך יספרו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעתו. פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון. צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסיד בכל מעשיו. קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת. רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם. שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל רשעים ישמיד. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר, שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
We continue, bottom of page 3, Chati Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah
seated for a moment. There's a traditional image that we invoke on the high holidays of the gates of heaven swung wide open. And for some of us, this is the image we need. For others of us, it's hard to connect with this concept. So what's behind it? What is the function of that imagery? I think it means to signal that this is a time when barriers must fall. The barriers that keep us from accessing the divine, the protective walls that we build around ourselves and around our hearts, the blinders that we put on so as not to look at ourselves too deeply. We have to let our gates open too. Sometimes it's easiest to do that in stages. And so tonight in this Selichot service, we'll travel through 3 different spiritual gates. Sha'arei Rachamim, the gates of mercy. Sha'arei Din, the gates of judgment. And Sha'arei Tefillah, the gates of prayer. And our first stop is Sha'arei Rachamim, the gates of mercy and compassion. We're going to begin to chip away at the wall to crack open that gate inside of us and let divine compassion in. So if you'll all turn to page 4 and please rise, we will begin together. You have taught us, O God, your covenant with life. This day remember your covenant revealed from of old to Moses. As it is written, the Lord descended in a cloud and stood with him there and revealed the divine nature. The Lord passed before Moses and said, turn to the middle of page 4. We're going to read all together. And where it says he, please join with me and replace that with God so as not to limit God with our language. Adonai, the Lord is merciful before a person sins. Adonai, the Lord is merciful also after a person has sinned. El, God is all-powerful. Rachum, God is compassionate. Vechanun, and gracious. Erech apayim, God is slow to anger. Verav chesed, God is abounding in kindness. Ve'emet, even after God's scrutiny of our conduct. Notzer chesed la'alafim, God's kindness extends to future generations. Nosei avon, God forgives sins committed willfully. Vafesha, God forgives sins committed in defiance of God's will. Vechata'ah, as well as those committed unwittingly. Venakeh, God acquits the repentant sinner. turn to page 5 in the middle. The soul is yours, the body your creation. Lord, have compassion upon your handiwork. I'm going to read you just 2 excerpts from this book called Dear God, Children's Letters to God. Dear God, thank you for my parents, my sister Anita, and for my grandma and grandpa. They are all real warm and special. I forgive you for my brother Phil. I guess you didn't finish working on him. Sean, age 12. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I pray to you each and every night. Sometimes I pray to you during science. This is not good for my grades. Davida, age 11. This book is full of adorable prayers like this. And it made me wonder, how many of us write our own prayers? I'm curious, show of hands. Okay, I see one. That's great. We have this extensive liturgical tradition, and so many prayers are already written for us. I rarely write my own prayers. And we have these beautiful prayers that have been written for us, beautiful prayers that connect us to Jews across time and space, that connect us to generations past, words that are meaningful to us. But I think we forget sometimes that we can also Shir Ladonai Shir Chadash. We can sing new songs to God. We can write new prayers. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to write prayers according to the themes and motifs that we are encountering in this service. We're going to write personal prayers of reflection. These are going to be anonymous prayers, and we'll collect them a little later in the evening, and then towards the end of the service, we're going to read some of them out, so keep them in mind while you're writing. I believe some index cards have been handed out. There should be 2 for each of you because we're going to have 2 opportunities to write prayers. And for those of you who are joining us online, please pull up a blank document, get out a pen and paper. We'd love for you to be a part of this exercise. So our first theme that we are speaking to is compassion. We're in Sha'arei Rachamim, the gates of compassion and mercy. And so I want us to think about a time when we've seen a lack of compassion this past year and turn it into a hope or wish for the year to come. Or think about where we've seen an abundance of compassion this past year and turn it into a statement of gratitude and awe. So an example of this past year, I saw an amazing show of compassion from my friend, my mother, my daughter, when XYZ, and I pray for a year of continued compassion, love, and grace between friends, something like that. There are many ways to write prayers. There is no right or wrong way. And so we'll give you a few moments now to write along the lines of compassion.
So as we have now gone through Shari Rachamim, the gates of compassion, we're now standing before the second gate, Shari Din, the gates of judgment. But one of the questions that I have with this discussion of gates is, what do these heavenly gates actually look like? And as they swing open and they invite us inside, what are the things that we're seeing? And where exactly is inside anyway? Perhaps behind each gate lies a mirror, not of glass, but of the purest light, which both reflects and illuminates our deepest chambers. To enter inside the Shari Din, the gates of judgment, and to gaze upon its mirror is to take an unflinching look deep within ourselves. We see the chambers of our souls, some whose doors may be locked, or whose existence we'd prefer to ignore, but we know that we can't. And we consider our actions, our moments of triumph and of failure, and we take responsibility for them all in the same way that we heard from our speakers tonight, that each of them took responsibility for their actions. The light from the mirror of Dean encourages us to hold ourselves accountable in all of our complexity. As we turn to page 6 for El Melech Yoshev, please rise.
Amen.
continue to stand, we read responsively. O God, our sovereign, enthroned in mercy, you rule with loving kindness.
Pardon the people's transgressions, forgiving them again and again.
You are generous in forgiving the sinners. You deal mercifully with all creatures, not according to the evil of their deeds.
Lord, you taught us through the humble one Moses to recite your 13 attributes of mercy.
Remember, as you judge us, the covenant of mercy which you then revealed.
Thus is it written in your Torah, the Lord descended in a cloud, and Moses was with the Lord there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord.
Amen. You may be seated, and we turn to page 7 for Shomer Yisrael.
Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shemer, Shomer Yisrael, Shemor, Sherit Yisrael, Shemor, Sherit Yisrael, Ve'al Yavad, Ve'al Yavad, Ve'al Yavad Yisrael, Ha'omerim Shema Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shemor, Sherit Yisrael, Ve'al Yavad, Ve'al Yavad, Ve'al Yavad Yisrael, Ha'omerim Shema Yisrael, Ha'omerim Shema Yisrael, Ha'omerim Shema Yisrael, Ha'omerim Shema Yisrael.
We continue at the bottom of the page with the 13 attributes. Please rise.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rafo V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rod Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed La'avim, Notzer Avot והלכת לעווננו חטאתנו ונחלתנו.
You may be seated. And as you are sitting down, hopefully you have that extra blank note card next to you and a pencil. And I'd like to share a couple questions to guide your thinking as you write your next personal prayer, this time around Shari Deen. As you gaze into the mirror of Deen, because we're gonna use my metaphor for this one, as you gaze into that mirror and you gaze into yourself, what do you see? What aspects of yourself catch your attention? And what aspects of yourself do you wish you could ignore? I'd encourage everyone to write for yourself a prayer which acknowledges your complexity. What are the actions from last year you want to hold yourself accountable for? And perhaps even more importantly, who do you want to make yourself accountable to? Write down what you see in the mirror and how you hope to turn accountability into a source of strength and blessing for the year to come. Have you finished writing the prayers? Did you? Tell you what, if you will, I'm going to have you, Tara, I'm going to give you another minute to do it. All right? Why don't you do that? Khazan, could you just get a little bit more music? You just need another minute. You know, you just, yeah. Can you, just want you to be able to think and to write down, and then following that, we'll collect them in just a minute. Some of you look like you're still writing.
1, 2, 3, 1. Pass them now to the inside, right? Pass them to the inside row, if you will. Just put them down, and Debbie, you're going to help me collect them, and Lisa, you can from your side as well. Shari Tefillah, the gates of Tefillah. Now, normally we translate, how do we translate Tefillah usually? Prayer. What does that mean?
what does prayer mean? Remember when we were in rabbinical school, we had to write a paper for, Rabbi Gilman, right? I think 2 pages or 3 at most. You couldn't cite anybody else. Right? I think you this year have to write a sermon, I think, for Rabbi Feinstein, I think, on prayer. And what is it? Well, I started thinking about it. The Hebrew word tefillah, how do we understand it etymologically? For example, the root of it is, if you want to look at it, palal, which you don't hear that second lamed in there. You hear it if you know the word lahit palel, that form of it, the reflexive. In the PL, which is used as well, you hear it, but not in the word tefillah. But palal can mean either entreat, supplicate, plead, judge, decide, or think. So how does that all come together to mean tefillah? What is tefillah? And so it made me think then about hot tefillah. What prayer is hot tefillah? It's the Amidah. Right? That is the rabbis consider the prayer. And what is the introduction they give for hot tefillah, the Amidah, when we warm up? Many of you know this, right? The words Adonai tzvatai tiftach ufi yagi tilatecha. Comes from the 51st Psalm. Now, I don't know if you know the context of it, though. Right? God, open my lips, my mouth may proclaim your praise. Right? Some of you know that piece of how it fits in there. But I went back and I looked at the 51st Psalm and where that line fits in. I want to share with you the Psalm. I want you to listen and feel it, because this is after David sins in regard to Bathsheba. And what does that mean to be able to want forgiveness? These are the words of the 51st Psalm. Psalm of David. When Nathan the prophet came to him after he had come to Bathsheba, have mercy upon me, O God, as befits your faithfulness, in keeping with your abundant compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly of my iniquity. Purify me of my sin. For I recognize my transgressions. I am ever conscious of my sin. Against you alone have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. So you are just in your sentence and right in your judgment. Indeed, I was born of iniquity. With sin, my mother conceived me. Indeed, you desire truth about that which is hidden. Teach me wisdom about secret things. Purge me with hyssop till I am pure. Wash me till I am whiter than snow. Let me hear tidings of joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed exult. Hide your face from my sins. Blot out all my iniquities. Fashion a pure heart for me, O God. Create in me steadfast spirit. Do not cast me out of your presence or take your Holy Spirit away from me. Let me again rejoice in your help. Let a vigorous spirit sustain me. I will teach transgressors your ways, that sinners may return to you. Save me from my blood guilt, O God. God, my deliverer, that I may sing forth your beneficence. Adonai tzvatai tiftach ufi yagi tilatecha. O Lord, open my lips. Let my mouth declare your praise. You do not want me to bring sacrifices. You do not desire burnt offerings. True sacrifice to God is a contrite spirit. God, you will not despise a contrite and crushed heart. What is tefillah? It's coming with an open heart that's already been crushed, knowing that you have to change. It's the pain that you bring to the experience. That's what tefillah is really all about. Back in the Siddur, the prayer book for Selichot, top of page 8, if you'll join me as I begin, if you'll respond in this reading. Hear our voice, Lord, our God, have compassion upon us, and with that compassion, accept our prayer.
Help us to return to you, O Lord, then truly shall we return. Renew our days as of old.
Consider our words, Lord. Look into our innermost thoughts.
Do not cast us away from your presence. Do not remove your Holy Spirit.
Do not dismiss us when we are old as our strength diminishes. Do not abandon us.
Do not abandon us, Lord our God. Do not be far from us.
For you, Lord, do we wait, and you, our God, will answer. We rise together, Shema Kolenu.
Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim, v'kabel berachamim. Lord our God, spare us pity, accept our prayer in your gracious love, in your gracious love.
You may be seated. I'm going to share some of the personal prayers that you wrote. Adonai, help me to acknowledge my shortcomings. Grant me the strength to hold myself accountable under no watchful eyes aside from yours. Hashem, give your compassion to my family. Protect them from further heartbreak and tragedy. Give me the strength to be more understanding to family members who have high expectations of those closest to them, as well as themselves. As I gaze into the mirror of Dean, I see the anxieties and worries of my past and hope to shed that weight off my shoulders as I pray to stand here each year a little lighter. I pray to be able to resist the temptation to judge others, to have compassion for others. I want to be accountable to me, to look in the mirror and see the person I want to be rather than some days who I am. Dear God, I know you may be too busy to come and heal all who are ill, but at least send us enough doctors and nurses to help those who need them. I pray for patience and understanding when I feel I have none. I pray that God gives me more strength, patience to accept the facts and changes in my life. God, please forgive me if I complain. I pray that in time of the greatest need, everyone in the community receives the same level of compassion and support the community has shown me during my time of greatest need. And finally, I pray that I am forgiven for my impatience with those I care about when they could not help their actions, just as I worked that they did for me. We pray to God to hear our prayers, Lishmoa el Harina, the El Hatfilah, to hear the joy and the Tfilah.
El harina v'el hatfilah, lishmoa el harina, lishmoa el hatfilah, lishmoa el harina v'el hatfilah. Listen to the song of my heart, listen to the voice of my prayer, listen to the song of my heart and the voice of my fervent prayer. Listen to the song of my heart. Listen to the voice of my prayer. Listen to the song of my heart and the voice of my fervent prayer. Listen, God, listen. Hear my song and my prayer. Listen, God, listen to my song and prayer. Listen, God, listen. Hear my song and my prayer. Listen, God, listen to my song and prayer. Listen, God, listen. Hear my song and my prayer. Listen, God, listen to my song and prayer. Listen, God, listen. Hear my song and my prayer. Listen, God, listen to my song and prayer.
Three is always an important number in our tradition, wholeness, completion, a mystical tradition as well. 3 times of Kol Nidre. Think about on Yom Kippur, the Avodah service, 3 times that we bow down. 3 times that we repeat the Adonai, Adonai, the 13 attributes, and 3 times they are recited. The third and final time, we rise now for the 13 attributes, Adonai, Adonai.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Habayim, B'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Nosef
be seated. Top of page 10. We continue. Tavo.
That beautiful piece was commissioned by Temple Aliyah for Michael Isaacson to compose. It's beautiful. So now usually the rabbi talks, but now we're going to give a musical introduction to the Ashamnu. Okay? Usually the rabbis just talk about the vidui right now, but tonight on Selichot I'm going to do that. And I am sure that even if you are not a musician, you know that there are two types of chords. Yeah? The major chord sounds bright and happy, but the minor chord is sad and plaintive. I beg you, God, 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 God. And you know, most really popular songs are in that minor key, because musicians who write them are usually depressed. But this is minor, and this is major. And when we come before the Holy One to say, I'm sorry, it shouldn't be in major. It should be in minor. That's what it should be like. But for some reason we say, but you know, there's a reason for this. Because all of us are happy to be able to stand before the Holy One and at this time of year ask, give me another chance. So how could we not sing it in major? Because in minor, it would be sad. But in major, we're happy to stand. Please stand at this time as we sing Ashamnu in a major key.
Remain standing. Debbie, Strom, and Ophir. Will you honor us by opening up the ark, our presidents of our two communities, please, if you'll come forward. I'm going to remain standing at the top of page 11 as the presidential processional comes forward. Here, he says. The ark is open, top of page 11 of Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu masim.
The ark is closed. We continue with the Kaddish Shalem. You may be seated.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash me'erava.
usually part of the Selichot service, but I know there's at least two individuals, including Rabbi Cameras, right, and Alan, who are reciting Kaddish. And so on page 58, if you want, in the regular prayer books, if you know it, those of you reciting, anybody who has the obligation or the desire to recite Kaddish, are invited to rise at this time with your community to affirm memory and life shared. Those reciting the Kaddish join together. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabah. Amen. Yomad yivrach v'yutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael v'adal v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevarach le'olam u'le'olam Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudisha v'yichu le'elam mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata v'amiran v'yoma v'miru Amen. Yehei shlama rabbamin shemaya v'chayim aleinu yalkol Yisrael Amen. Oseh shalom b'roma Yaseh shalom aleinu yalkol Yisrael Amen. Amen. We're going to, what a pleasure always to gather together our communities and to be able to share and music and the cantors and the choir and all of you. It's what it's about, sharing together these moments. We're going to finish the service with Adon HaSlichot, which is not in your booklet there. We'll have some shofar blasts from Dr. Phil Gantz, Doctor of Shofar. And we'll finish up with Avinu Malkeinu.
Doctor of Shofrology?
Doctor of Shofarology, that's it exactly. We'll, and so Chazan Stein, are we, who's Adon HaSlichot? That's you. He's the Adon. Okay, here we go.
Adon HaSelichot, Borei Levarot, Golei Lamotot, Dover Tzedakot, Adon Lefanecha, Rachem Aleinu, Adon Lefanecha, Rachem Aleinu, Adon Beniflaot, Vatik Benechamot, Zocher Berit Avot, Choker Kelayot, Chatan Ulefanecha, Rachem Aleinu, Chatan Ulefanecha, Rachem Aleinu, Tov u'meitiv labriot, Yodea kol nistarot, Kovei shafonot, Lovei tzedakot, Chatan ulefanecha, Rachem aleinu, Chatan ulefanecha, Rachem aleinu, Ma'alei zakuyot, Nora tehilot, Soleach avonot,
rise for the shofar blast. It's our custom when we do these services for Selichot to take the prayers that you've written, to actually place them in the special vessel, and to keep them in the ark during this time of year, that our prayers should find the holiness and within our hearts. We're going to shofar? May all of our prayers be answered. In our communities know goodness and peace, and we say, Amen.
It is. It totally is. Yeah. Awesome stuff. I gotta go fetch my crippled wife.
I don't think so. Nadine said she's not available. You haven't heard it often.
Thank you,
No, I was laughing because you were scanning yourself. Usually I'm the one who saw it. No, then I saw it. This is what's great about the app. Yes.
I know.
No, but well, I'm always hot, so don't look at me. So. Oh, okay. Well, we're lucky because we're right next to it. Yeah. There's some of them, but
My problem is I hear the Michelle in my ear.
that's the only problem with me not standing on the inside.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
You
You did fine though. I didn't hear you being led astray.
Did you see how I went like this a little bit closer?
Anytime, Susan.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. I'm used to singing, Noreen always will plant me in the middle because sometimes I'm a second soprano, sometimes I'm an alto, I go back and forth. So I'm used to being in the middle. You can hear all the parts. That's what I like
And
about
the
it.
funny part about it is one part that I know that we're not supposed to sing.
Yeah.
And she was singing, and then all of a sudden, I didn't
Those
sing,
were
though.
impressive
I didn't
persons.
sing. But then I realized
Thank
she
you.
was
Thank you.
doing
I actually went home and watched it.
She's doing it. Yeah, she's doing the duet with
It
mine.
was her turn.
Watch, right. Watch, yeah.
And I thought, oh, she's making a mistake. She's not supposed to sing now because we're not supposed to sing.
No, she's doing, Jennifer used to do that, but Jennifer's not here anymore, so as far as I know, she's not here anymore. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Harry said today. I know. Rod? Yeah.